All right, so we're going to talk about the incident that happened this week in South Carolina, where school resource officer Ben Fields grabbed the, I think, 16-year-old student and strong-armed her and pretty much dragged her out of the classroom.
And then they arrested the other student that was filming it.
Yeah, that spoke out against it. So there's a few pages on Facebook that I follow that that they consider themselves progressive pages, and a lot of the people that get the updates of these pages, I think would consider themselves so-called progressive. But it struck me that on this page for this particular incident, the comments are they seem to be split down the middle, or even more towards favoring the police officer for what he did.
Yeah.
And it just seems like people are pretty upset that the cop was fired, and they feel that there's really no accountability for the student. So they rather blame the victim and say that she's the one that was being disrespectful and refusing to listen to directions, and that the cop was justified in dealing with her, because otherwise how is he going to get her out of the classroom?
They have a point in that that the girl was unruly and that she needed discipline, but I think that that it's not up to them to decide who is the one that needs to do the discipline or the disciplining. Because I think we can all agree that whenever we see a child that's acting unruly, that we have like an impulse to try to bring them in line. Even like if you see a little kid throwing shit, like a little 4-year-old, right? You see a 4-year-old throwing stuff, you feel like smacking him, and you feel like saying, "Hey, quit it." But then you're not that person. You're not the person that should be doing the disciplining. And I think that's where they're confused.
But you mean
because they're saying that the cop was justified in doing that, but I mean, we can all agree, everybody who's watching the video can agree that the girl seriously needed some disciplining, but he was not the person to do it.
So when you were saying that when we see other kids doing these things, like a 4-year-old,
yeah.
you mean like our kids, your kids, or just kids. Any other kids?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know.
It's human nature to want to bring
like some discipline.
Some discipline to anybody who's acting out of or who's acting out or who's unruly. I think we all have a desire to do that.
If it was your job, let's say you were the officer and they would have told you that you need to remove her from the classroom, how would you do it? What measures would you go to? See, that's a problem. Well, I think because obviously she was causing a problem. She needed to be removed.
Nah.
But she refused to. So what are you supposed to do? You know what I mean?
Drag the chair out with the student on it. I mean, think outside of the box.
See, but you also have to follow authority. You also have to comply with things. It shouldn't get to that point where things have to get to that.
But he mentions a good dimension to it, which is from the point of view of the cop, how's he supposed to deal with it? And by the way, in this situation, I think what he did was totally inappropriate. And I was having a discussion with some other people earlier this week, and the minute that they said, well, let's look at the student and let's look at like her circumstances and why is she being raised? Why is she unruly? What are the type of circumstances that lead to her being like that? And I told them...
She's an orphan?
I told him it doesn't really matter what she did.
It doesn't really matter.
It's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
And they said, well, no, how can it be irrelevant? Because, obviously she was the one that is refusing to follow simple instructions, and she's being unruly and defiant. Yeah. And then I told them, when a woman gets physically abused by her husband...
Yeah.
And if you see a video of the husband physically abusing her, do you then go and say, well, let's look at the history of the woman and let's see what she was doing. Maybe she,
maybe she deserved it.
Yeah, maybe she did something that provoked the man, and let's this attitude of let's blame the victim. And it's essentially the same exact thing here.
Mm-hmm.
But what Cito was saying is that it's actually it is very important, because once you call the police officer, what is he supposed to do? Because all of it. Hold on. But I'm just putting myself in his shoes.
Mm-hmm.
From a point of view of a police officer, the training that they receive
you're overlooking one very important aspect of this particular situation, and that is that the girl is black. So now you're saying that pretty much the cops' hands were tied, because at this point they had already called him. He's the maximum authority when it comes to resolving the issue. But what if the girl had been white?
Right.
Exactly, right. So now we're talking about a completely different situation, because
Right.
it would not have unfolded that way, and nobody would have been calling for him to actually exert maximum authority and do whatever he had to do.
Right. So what I'm
So even us, or maybe Ciro and you, are a little bit skewed because the girl was black.
no, what I'm not saying I'm skewed. I'm trying to put myself in the cop's shoes. I'm not
If
trying.
she was white,
No,
you
I know.
would not be saying that.
But I'm actually agreeing with you, though. I'm not just let me just get my whole thought out there so you can understand what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that from the perspective of the cop, his training has for the most part been to restrain people, and he is a resource officer for the police. So you have to think that he does have some training in how to deal with students,
Yeah.
so that he's not too forceful.
Let's hope he does.
So that's some training that he does have, but he does have a reputation around the school as being really tough.
Yeah.
And what's his nickname? Officer
Slam or
Slam.
something?
Yeah, I think so. But if you're a police officer and you walk into a classroom, so let's talk about the individual now. People know him. People know him as Resource Officer Slam.
Yeah.
He knows people on a first name basis, right?
Mhm.
So he gets called into this classroom and he tells the girl, hey, you need to get out or you need to follow instructions. And she defies him.
Yeah.
So now he feels like his reputation is on the line.
Yeah.
He feels threatened and he feels challenged by her.
Yeah.
Now, you're absolutely right that had it been a white girl, they probably wouldn't have ever called the cops. Maybe they would have just called her parents to come in and deal with her.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Maybe they did try to call the black girl's parents. I'm not sure. But I think we all agree that it probably could have been done. It would have been done differently had it been white, a white person. But now you're this cop and you're in there and she's defying you. So now he's thinking, well, I can't let this student get the best of me because then everyone's going to talk about me. I'm thinking that's what's going through his mind too.
She's black.
Yeah, because she's black too,
'Cause
especially because she's black.
Yeah.
Because had it been a white girl, then yeah,
Yeah,
that's one
they-
thing. But now it's just like petulant black girl
Yeah.
that's defying me, and I
That's-
can't let that happen.
That's out of his tribe.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because, because I was telling you about that last time, that a lot of our behavior comes down to a tribalistic behavior or psychological behavior. Because if the cop is dealing with a white girl and she's being defiant, he's gonna feel more inclined to give her some leeway, because he feels like she's part of his tribe.
you mean to give himself some leeway in how he handles her?
No, to give her some leeway as far as being disrespectful and not necessarily obeying command right away. Like, he might say it a few more times. He might plead for the girl to think about what this is gonna mean for her record. Like, he would have had more patience had she been a white girl, because he would, psychologically, or what they call bias, unconscious bias, he would have seen her as part of his tribe.
Well, and also,
Whereas the black girl is already out of. She doesn't even enter that into consideration for him. She's already outside of his tribe, so now he has no patience for that shit.
well, also, he's been conditioned by our culture and his upbringing in whatever neighborhood he grew up in, and also as being part of the cop culture, he's being conditioned to view blacks different than whites. So there's there's this category, and actually, if you go on Facebook and you read all the comments about the people that are saying that she deserved what she got,
Yeah.
a lot of the same people fall into this same line of thinking where they think, oh, defiant, unruly, loud black girl, she fits a certain category that I'm familiar with,
Mhm.
and it's these ghetto ass black people from the hood, and they deserve all these things, because you even see the comments on Facebook and on YouTube. They say things like, oh yeah, these guys are animals. One of the pages on Facebook started a funding campaign for her to try to raise money
Yeah.
for her because I think he broke her arm. And there's so many people that are really pissed off. And how can you give money to this thug? That's what they say, right?
She's the thug.
Right. And it's almost like it's blaming the victim, but it's not just blaming the victim because she's black. It's blaming the victim because she fits in line with the stereotypes that people have been conditioned with.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you see an unruly girl and she's defiant and she's being your typical loud, obnoxious black person that people haven't this image that they have of them in their head, then obviously you're justified in treating her.
Which there are some.
Yeah, but like what percentage of? You find people like that everywhere, though.
My point was gonna be that's irrelevant.
But yeah,
because you don't know what is a specific situation that led to them being being ignorant or being obnoxious or whatever you want to call it.
This specific girl, I think her mom recently passed away. Yeah. And so she's dealing with that.
She's
and then
in foster care, I think.
So there's some other issues going on with her. But see, here's the thing. People see that people see how she's being and they typecast her right away. And they don't bother to say, let's look into, they do say, let's look into her, but they do it in a way so that they want to blame her. Yeah. They want to dig into like her past to see, okay, she's this type of person, so this is how we're going to justify that she deserves this. I mean, they don't say let's have some compassion for the way she was acting because of like some of the things that may have happened.
But I'm not surprised by that type of behavior from those people actually, because you saw the same thing with Trayvon Martin. As soon as he got shot by that half Mexican, by the way.
No, Peruvian.
Oh, Peruvian?
I believe so. Zimmerman?
He looks like my uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's half Hispanic, half Jewish, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think he's Peruvian.
Yeah, so
you saw crazy, by the way. You've seen all the pictures that he's posted on Twitter.
I haven't seen it
afterwards. Anyway, but dumb shit.
Well, my point is that you saw the same type of comments and claims by his defenders that he was somebody who was already like he was displaying some bad traits or bad characteristics to his behavior, that he looked like a thug and he was wearing a hoodie, and I think he was throwing gang signs in in a picture or something. Trayvon Martin, but why does that matter?
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you get that you're justified in shooting somebody like that just because they fit into that stereotype that you have in your head.
Yeah, but to you and to us, actually, that doesn't matter, but to a lot of people it does, because what they do is they categorize specific black people that fit into that description. They categorize them as like even subhuman. They think these people deserve the worst that society can dish out to them. And once, for some reason, the mentality is that, so that as soon as you're able to say, yeah, this is a black person from the hood and they deserved all that, then somehow people think it's justified. It's almost like, and you see it in the comments, and it's this, and even from people that claim to be nice people that say that they're not racist. Like I was talking to a female about this, and her reaction also was to start probing into, well, let's talk about what the girl did. Yeah. And I said, that's completely irrelevant. And we got into this heated discussion about it. And again, because the girl is black. Yeah. Because had it been white, I don't know if it would have escalated to this situation.
Yeah, so they have an assumption of guilt already, like, from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly.
You're presumed to be, you did something, like two people do the same thing, but for some reason, one you tolerate one person more than the other, and it's completely based on your perceptions of them.
Right, because if
on skin color or on circumstances even.
Right, because if let's say that it's a white girl that's acting out the same way, then people are gonna start looking for other things to blame instead of blaming her. Yeah, they're gonna say, well,
maybe she didn't have her lunch this morning.
Yeah, maybe she's
a little moody because she didn't have breakfast.
Right, and then then the conversation is gonna shift to like the officer should have done this, should have done that. Mm-hmm. He has received training to deal with these type of situations. How come he didn't try to de-escalate? Or, well, she wasn't actually doing anything where he had to de-escalate, but how come he didn't manage it better? because it's black people. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I was really surprised. And if you go on Facebook and YouTube and watch some of these videos, you're gonna see the comments and these are people that I think would otherwise defend.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're talking about what we like to call the liberal types that they like to stand up for any social cause. But in this case, they're dropping the ball, right?
Yeah, in this case, they're like, well, no, she actually deserved it.
Yeah, fucking retards.
We'll edit that out.
No, that's fine. Leave it in. Yeah, I think I have I wanted to make the point that we're Hispanic and we live in the hood, and so we're somewhere in the middle. We can on the one hand we can see how there's a need for discipline. It's universal. You need to discipline some bad elements that are within any institution, especially within the school. You need to have a firm hand, but at the same time, we live among people who are completely disadvantaged, and we see how their circumstances lead to their behavior or influence their behavior and sometimes not so positive ways. And we have I guess we have a unique perspective, and I guess that's the reason why we're having this conversation. Whereas if we were, all three of us were white and we lived in a well-off neighborhood, we would fail to see how the trappings of under-resourced upbringing. You know what I mean? Like, it would be really difficult for us to put ourselves in their shoes. But I don't think we have a privilege in that we're Hispanic and we are able to because we see it every day. We straddle both worlds, so to speak.
Right.
Because you live over there, or you work in Santa Monica, but you've lived in the South Central as well. I live in South Central, but it sounds a little retarded, but I listen to NPR, so I pretty much know how the
other perspective.
Yeah, so I pretty much know how that line of thinking is. Like a more.
But if people just,
discipline.
But don't you think that if all these people that are putting all these comments on Facebook and YouTube, don't you feel that if they just thought about it a little bit longer and they thought, okay, fine,
yeah.
No, if they just kept going along that same train of thought, for example,
it's inconvenient though.
No, I know, but and that's the thing, because let's just say that somehow the way that they think is correct. Okay, well, she obviously fits this profile of the type of teenager that she is, and what the officer did was he just went in there and did his job, and it's fine. That's actually like how they treat inmates, right?
Yeah.
So you give them a warning, three warnings, and then they don't listen, you just like pound them.
Uh-huh.
So let's say that's okay, that's justified. Well, according to some of these people that are making comments.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think, okay, well, if that's how we're going to start treating black people in school, so how are we going to make sure that, because obviously in their mind, they don't want white people to be treated that way. Yeah. Only black people that fit specific stereotype. Because only black people are the type that are...
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the ghetto type. They're the ones that need the discipline.
That are falling out of line, out of step. Yeah.
So we don't want white people to be treated this way.
Uh-huh.
But is that the mentality? Because that seems like a really dangerous slope as well. Because once you start treating a certain group of the population like that, what about white kids that grow up in black neighborhoods?
Yeah,
like
Eminem.
Yeah,
I'm sure he was unruly in class.
Yeah, and maybe he did receive the same type of treatment actually because had they known that he was associated with black people.
Yeah, and the way he talked, he had the slang.
Yeah,
he associated with himself with black people, and so that's not too far fetched.
So to think
that they treated him like a black person.
One of the things that I think about a lot is it's so funny because it seems that the reason why police officers and a huge segment of the American population hates blacks is because of their defiance.
Yeah,
it's almost like
it's built into their DNA.
But it's almost like they're saying, "Fuck! It's been centuries and we haven't broken them yet. How can they still be so defiant?" And they hate that about them because think about it. Every time a police officer pulls over somebody and then it gets out of hand and someone gets shot or someone gets their arm broken or they end up in jail. People always say, well, if this person had only followed directions, if this person had only complied,
Yeah, comply.
but you don't have to be nice to a police officer.
Yeah.
If you feel that the police officer is wrong, then
Yeah.
you've seen videos of white people yelling at them.
Of
You've seen,
course, yeah.
and so why can't black people do that? Why can't black people be defiant and still be treated like regular citizens? And it just seems like that is at the root of the hatred
Yeah.
towards them.
Well, you have an intolerance for them.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
almost like there's no defiance in you. You guys
No.
can't be defiant. You're
No.
not in a spot.
Not
you're not
even-
in a position where you can be defiant towards
Exactly.
us because we are the authority.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and you know,
That's unfortunate.
growing up in and it's funny because growing up in South Central, I don't know if the cops are biased towards Hispanics as well, but I don't think the Hispanics are as defiant as the blacks are, because I don't know if it's cultural or I don't know if it's the immigrant status.
I think, you know what? If you'll allow me, I think I have a good theory of why that is, and that's because I've analyzed a lot of black people that I've met throughout my life, and a recurring theme that they talk about is not having that sensation of having a place to fall back on, like we do.
Mm-hmm.
And they point to that. They point like, hey, you guys have a whole country. You know what I mean? Like, you guys
Right.
have Mexico. If this country doesn't work out for you guys have another country, and they don't have anything. This is their country.
Right.
And so, in a sense, I think that's where the defiance comes from black people, because this is their country, and yet they're being made to feel like
It's not
they don't belong here. You know what I mean? So that influences that defiance
right.
in them.
And by the way, I think it's a good
And it's
thing
well-
because
I think so too. It's
because
well
they're-
justified.
they're fighting to be treated equally.
I'll tell you this: if when my son grows up and I hear that a cop slammed my son in class, I'm not gonna be happy with that fucking cop. I'll tell you that much.
Right. Well, no one is, or no one. Why would you?
No.
Why
but
would anyone be?
I'm gonna be like more pissed off. I'm gonna be calling for, for charges or for something. Something. I think.
I'm gonna be asking.
To be honest, I think black people are really tempted as far as their reaction, because they've been beat down so many times. They've done this shit to them so many times that now all they ask for is a little bit of accountability. But I wouldn't. I would ask for more.
I would ask what happened with the upbringing of that child that
Which one, the cop?
no, your son. If your son gets
If my son gets in trouble and they call the cop,
yeah, I want to say what did that?
You know what? I'm the dad, so I guess I'm partly responsible. But the reason I'm telling you this is because, like, sometimes walking around the neighborhood when I see the cops, like, I feel this desire to go up to them and talk to them, and to tell them that, sometimes it's not okay to just fucking shoot somebody, even if they have a gun, because you don't know what are the circumstances that led to that point. Because my son, he's a fucking troublemaker. I mean, you've met him.
Well,
and-
he's 6. How much of a troublemaker can he?
No, he's. And
You think he will? You think he shows the potential?
In this neighborhood, I can only hope that he doesn't stray, to
with the wrong crowd.
activities.
Yeah.
The wrong crowd, wrong activities. But I am fucking like 100% realistic about the neighborhood that we live in, and so I know that there's a very big chance that he's gonna be doing something that I don't necessarily approve. I can't be following him 100% of the time. So what happens if he's hanging around with somebody and then all of a sudden they get brave, or they get
I mean, they're teenagers. They're gonna do stupid stuff, right?
yeah. So I mean, it's a really tough issue for me because like I told you, I feel like us, we straddle this middle of the road perspective.
So the question would be, what do you think is causing the cops the cop brutality? Do you think it's because race, or do you think cops are just being trained this way? Because you do have police brutality even to white people. That Kelly homeless guy that was killed.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be racist in a sense, like
He was homeless though.
Yeah, he was homeless.
So
but
homeless person,
And he
same value as a black
and he
person.
was mentally ill.
Yeah, well, it comes down to class too. A lot of it is class, and so it just so happens that the inner city where Hispanics and Black people find themselves, that's like the lower class. Because I'm sure if you go to places where you see poor white people, they probably get somewhat. I wouldn't say they probably don't get it as bad as Blacks and Hispanics, but they certainly don't get it the same as if a cop pulls a white person over in Beverly Hills.
No.
Right? So it is about class as well.
Obviously, the cops feel more threatened here. I would say in certain neighborhoods, that's why they're more trigger happy.
Yeah.
And again, they've been conditioned also because.
But you got to think about it. Their life is on the line too. So you can't trust anybody. Even you as a just regular citizen, you can't. You don't think you trust everybody. I'm pretty sure you're cautious with certain people because there's people that even the cops know that they gotta be a certain way towards. I mean, you can't blame the cops for being defensive, but it's like they don't have the training to know who to apply that to or who not to. You get me?
Yeah, no, I can understand what you're saying because the thing and we know like we have some friends that work in the police department or they're dispatchers, and I've had conversations with some of them, and I mean I understand that a police officer's job is really difficult because he's dealing with the worst of the worst in society. I mean, how often does he get exposed to the actual good
Not
people
always.
in society? Well, a police officer's job is to go and respond to something that happened, and a lot of the times it's the bad stuff that's happening in a community. So he's exposed day in and day out to the bad elements of a community. So
he has his guard up. All
exactly,
the time.
and he starts forming these. Maybe that starts reinforcing any stereotypes that he had before of the type of people that he's dealing with.
Yeah.
And I can understand that situation where a cop has to be a really good cop, and that's why they need training, right? That's they're cops, so they should understand that this is what they're going to be confronting. But yeah, they do need to make that distinction between here's an individual that I'm dealing with, and I have to, like a split second or a few seconds to decide whether or not
probable cause.
Yeah, this is an individual that's a risk to my life or not,
or reasonable.
So you can make that case, but some of the videos that we watch they're just so outrageous that you can't even believe it. For example, there's a video of it's somewhere in the South of this police officer that he follows someone into a gas station, and then he asks the black guy for his license.
Right,
so the black guy gets out of the truck, and the guy says, "Show me your license." And then the guy turns around and he goes to get his license from inside the truck, and the cop starts shooting him.
Yeah.
And
that's just bad training.
That's just a bad cop.
Yeah, that's murder.
Yeah, exactly.
What about
that's murder?
Well, he didn't kill him, but
if he had
attempted murder.
Yeah, attempted murder. Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying earlier, though, I think it's really interesting with what you were saying about your son.
Yeah.
Because what you're talking about really is this reality that blacks and then Hispanics as well, the reality that they live in, that one mistake could be their last. Mm-hmm. And when you're a teen, especially growing up in the hood, there's going to be mistakes that you're going to make. We all hear the stories of guys in their 30s and 40s when they say, yeah, when I was young, I was banging or I was doing these things.
I was 16 myself once.
Right, and they got out of it, right? But not everyone does. There's a lot of kids that one mistake cost them their lives, and that doesn't happen to other groups, or it doesn't happen as often. It doesn't happen to the white people. White people can make a few mistakes throughout their lives, and they can probably still be okay.
Yeah, they'll probably make more mistakes than people in the hood will.
And even if you don't end up dead, one mistake in the hood could land you in jail, which means you're kind of blacklisted for a while, or maybe permanently, and so that sets a trajectory for you.
Even if it's not violent. You know, even if it's not violent crime, I think there is more of a inclination to reward people who have better like a better situation, a better life situation, to reward them with a lighter hand, if you will. So, like for example, if my son at 16 were to go to a store and shoplift something. And then you take a white kid from let's say from Santa Monica, Burbank, one of those areas where is predominantly white. You take 2 16-year-olds. Remember, they're not adults; they're 16-year-olds. So it's gonna be up to the store's discretion and the police department's discretion whether the store or whether they're gonna file charges, and and the police's discretion whether or what type of punishment he's ultimately going to get. And I think they'll have a heavier hand for somebody who lives in who already is associated with coming from a tough neighborhood.
Right, because of the perceptions of the neighborhood.
Yeah, because if you're white, then you can easily, if I'm an old white person, I can easily see that, hey, this guy's white, but this was just a slip up.
Right.
Whereas with somebody in the hood,
that must be the norm.
This is just every day for him.
But by the way, I haven't checked the latest demographics of Burbank, but I don't know if it's a white neighborhood.
I've been to some parts of Burbank where it's completely
white.
No, not everywhere. I'm just saying, like.
So, if you know the odds are against you, you know that cops are a certain way to certain kind of people. Wouldn't that trigger something in your mind to make you act a certain way, to be smart about it, maybe comply with officers?
Well,
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how black people.
Yeah.
Mendigo, they get a training that we don't even get. Like black people actually tell their kids when they're growing up. They tell them, hey, whenever you come across a cop, just comply. Don't talk back to them. Yes, sir. And no, sir, and this and that.
Yeah, you get into,
and don't raise your voice.
You get into the argument of
that's how they teach them.
You get into this,
especially when they're becoming teenagers.
This is you get into a philosophical question about, is it better to put your head down, not resist, and survive?
Yeah.
Or is it better to resist?
I guess.
And so, which one do you choose? And so, which one? So the reason why I say it's a philosophical argument is because one approach benefits you individually, but that's it. You and your family.
Yeah.
I don't know what benefit it does to the whole society if things aren't really changing, right? If you put your head down and you don't speak up, then they may keep doing this to everyone else.
No, I think I know where you're going with this, and to be honest with you, I think one of the worst things that happened to the white or the black-white dynamic divide as far as governance and institution, I think the worst thing that happened was what is it called, the desegregation.
Desegregation?
No. Desegregation, or was there something else?
Well, no. Are you talking about separate but
integration?
Equal? Integration.
When they forced it, because now you were making now you were burdening white people into accepting. So now they took it as an attack. So now they took it as I'm just talking about psychological, psychology as I understand it. So what that did is that forced white people, because they're the ones with the power. So now that forced them to essentially keep a tight lid on the black population, because now they were forcing them to, they were allowed to go into the schools, into the workplace, but now you had to exert some force in order to control them.
But are you saying though that segregation would have been better?
No, not yeah, maybe some sort of controlled segregation.
I mean, but that's the problem.
I mean that you want. I guess obviously we have an impulse to call that racism, but it's not. I think it's forced integration that has been really turbulent for this country.
Well, so let's go back to segregation, right? Separate but equal, which wasn't really.
No, it wasn't really equal.
And because the system is inherently racist, that means that the parts that are black are the parts that are worse off. And that's systemic. That happens as a result of policy. Mm-hmm. And then, you end up with the ghettos in the black neighborhoods. And the problem with racism, though, and the problem that if you don't integrate, the problem is that the people, both cultures suffer as a result because they don't get exposed to each other. And we all know that the one thing that brings down racial barriers is just exposure to other people.
Yeah.
You're growing up with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it caused those problems in that white people, some, not all, but some, they just because of the way that they perceive black people and that they've always felt that they are inferior, they don't want to segregate with them. They don't want to integrate with them. They don't want a black kid dating a white girl or the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to resist it. But I don't think the alternative of keeping segregation still going, I don't think that's better than integration.
Well, but what you have now is a very like troublesome dynamic where white people have the authority, for the most part.
But you had that before, though.
Yeah, but you didn't have the perception of being under attack, and that's really what it is. Whenever, like, especially in this neighborhood, let's take this neighborhood where we live as an example of what happened right after desegregation. So a lot of people started moving from the south. They started migrating to Los Angeles, to other cities around here in California for work. There was a lot of work in manufacturing right here. There was a bunch of tire shops with tire car parts and all that stuff. And so what happened is that the white people that were here, they started leaving.
Right, white flight.
Yeah, white flight, or what they call white flight. And so they never, those people were never really exposed to black people, but they internalized that sensation of being displaced by black people. And I'm pretty sure those are the people that are in power right now, in authority, especially in law enforcement and in governance, city, municipal, state governance. These people have not, trust me, they have not integrated.
Yeah, but you
with
make
white people.
But
with black people.
You make it seem like if black people wouldn't have taken their jobs, that these people wouldn't have been racist to begin with, and I don't think that's true.
They were racist. What I'm saying is they should have come up with a better system. They should have come up with a system where there wasn't forced integration. Maybe because what do we have right now? We have segregation again, but it's not now. It's based on economic lines,
right?
You know what I mean? So, and I think that's what happened right after that. The white people decided,
yeah, but
you're forcing me to integrate, and I'm not gonna do it because ideologically they never really grapple with the idea of any other race being equal to them.
Yeah, but but that to me seems like it's a problem inherent in the culture of those people that didn't want to integrate. For example,
but we still have them around.
Yeah,
and they're in power.
But what alternative are you proposing though? Because segregation was pretty bad. Segregation was so that the racism was still there.
Yeah, but that's because it was stipulated, I think, in the law, that even up until then, up until the end of segregation, that the white people were superior to black people. You could have done away with those retarded notions, and you should have appointed black leaders to their own to administer their own local governance. I think that would have been a better outcome. It would have been a less chaotic rollout.
I don't know if I.
Yeah, because maybe you haven't thought about this as much as I have, but I think I think you can trace all these problems that we have about race, especially especially black and white.
But you're assuming that hold on though. You're going back in hindsight, and you're assuming a lot of things about.
Yeah, obviously, I don't know if it would have turned out better, but what I can see is that I can trace this dynamic of authority and what do you call it? Defiance. I can trace it back to that period.
I think we need a black perspective here, because I would agree that I'm pretty sure that if we talk to a black person, they will tell you that you have had some form or some variation of this even before integration.
Like slavery times?
after that, the Jim Crow South. Even after they gained supposedly their slavery, you had the Jim Crow South. Separate but equal was still a form of oppression. And then if black people had to ride on the back of the bus.
Yeah.
It's this.
And don't forget lynchings.
Exactly. And you had the number of lynchings they used to have in the South. So I don't think this is a new dynamic. I think it's just the country is becoming.
I think it's going to be a while before racism dies. It's going to take centuries for that.
But see, okay, so we can get into a whole discussion about racism too, because racism, I don't know if racism is going to die, because inherently we're all racist, all of us. Like,
yes, I believe so.
Hispanics are
all
racist. Black people are racist. Just like whites are. The only difference is
it sounds bad.
No, but
I'll let you keep talking. I just want to insert this little bit about. I have a feeling that it's not racism anymore. It's tribalism. It's some sort of behavioral tribalism. Okay, keep going.
Well, what I was going to say is that, we're all racist, or we were brought up with racist notions, even if we didn't want to. We, like you say, we belong to a specific group. That specific group, it is you're within the group, and so if you're an outsider, you're not with us. It's like everyone. The cops have that mentality.
Yeah.
If you're in the club of the police officers.
Yeah. Tribe.
So I think one of the reasons why a lot of white people get frustrated and get upset is because they feel like they are the ones that are being accused of being racist, whereas they see racism against them as well from Hispanics or from blacks, or maybe even from whites themselves. And so you have to acknowledge that the fact that it's within us, the capacity to be racist is within all of us.
Mm-hmm.
The big difference, though, is that the group that controls this nation is the white group.
Yeah.
And so when they are racist, their racism translates to policy and to laws.
That's right.
And these policies affect entire populations.
Like the crack cocaine.
The war on drugs policy.
How many times was it?
What?
800 to 1 or something like that? Or 80? 80 to 1?
What?
Like if you were caught with crack, and if you were caught with cocaine, you would get 80 times the harsher sentence with crack.
It's insane. I was just reading an article today about how, because
and then Obama brought it down to 20 to 1, and we're supposed to applaud him.
There was an article today about now that drugs have moved into the suburbs, especially.
Now you have a push for more leniency, right?
Yeah. There's more leniency now that it's affecting white people.
I never heard it. I haven't heard anybody make the link between the two. But in my head, in real time, I was like, why all of a sudden we're talking about this heroin epidemic in the suburbs, and now we're taking it like as a health issue more so than as a criminal issue.
And that's so. They said like 90% of the new heroin cases. Was it heroin or meth?
I think about 80 to 90.
Might be
heroin.
meth.
I forget which specific drug it is.
It's
but
heroin. It's rampant right now.
90% of the new people, the people that have used it, the new users are white.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if that's so. Does that show the racism in the system, or does that show you? Or does that show you a natural human response and what happens when people in power take action on something? Because before you could say that even though there was an epidemic and the measures were too harsh on black people, they are for the most part a voiceless group.
Yeah.
Right. But now it's affecting people, middle class Americans,
people they know,
people that have influence and that have power, and so now they're changing the policies. But is it racism though? I don't know if this case falls under racism.
Now it's affecting them, so it's just about convenience.
Exactly, it's convenience more than anything. Because before it was happening to the blacks, nobody cares about them. There's little will to do anything.
You'd be surprised how much it comes down to convenience and inconvenience. Just like very simple things, and they have tremendous.
No, we wouldn't be talking about this situation with the black girl that got dragged out of the classroom if people had the capacity to say, if that were my child, I wouldn't tolerate that.
Yeah,
if people just
at all.
Exactly. If people just ask that,
I wouldn't tolerate
it has no bearing in whether or not she's black or white or how she defined she was being.
You know what? one thing that I always hate whenever I hear, because I listen to NPR a lot, and so one thing that I always hate is when because they live in a fucking bubble. These people, they've never had a negative encounter with police, so they always have the impulse or an inclination to side with the what do you call
Take
it?
the side of the law.
There's a different justice system for
Yeah,
levels
there's
of people.
there's two types of justice systems. There's one for them, there's one for us, and like I get frustrated whenever I hear them because I've had run-ins with police. Not I've never been arrested, but I've been pulled over one too many fucking times for nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I know how quickly something like that can escalate into something that could be like profound.
If you took the attitude of being defiant, right?
Well, I have been defiant, but
Not black defiant,
probably not.
right?
You know, but for me, it's very simple to see. Whenever I hear about a new case of police brutality or unjustified shooting or unjustified murder, like Isle Ford right here, down the street.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, but it frustrates me that they're so incapable, especially white media. They're so incapable of, because they're in their bubble, they don't even feel the need to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. Like,
Yeah, but that's a universal problem. You find that problem with everything. You find that problem everywhere. Not just with race relations and the dynamic between
Maybe
whites and
that's-
black. You
maybe-
find that dynamic between men and women. You find it between Americans and people from other countries. It's just some human beings are better at empathy than others because they're able to see, look at this situation. Before I make a judgment on it, I'm going to think about all of these other scenarios. And one of those scenarios is, what if that were me or what if that were my son?
Yeah.
And that all of a sudden it changes how you think. So even before you judge, you're already thinking about the scenarios. Or some people just don't think about that because they get consumed by whatever preconceived notions they have about the individual. And,
yeah. And they don't need to step out of their own frame of mind.
Right.
They don't have the need or the.
There's no one that's challenging them to either. So, for example,
there isn't.
Right. So if no one challenges you, then you're gonna. If all you do is have a conversation with yourself all the time, and you're always agreeing with yourself,
and with people like you.
Exactly, and you're always it's people like you, then no one's ever challenging you to think about things in another way.
So you don't step out of your box.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what we need to do, right? Like institute some lower learning.
Well,
instead of higher.
I've always said that I've always said that they should teach critical thinking in school since a young age.
Yeah.
And they should teach it every single year. They should reinforce it every single year. There should be a critical thinking class.
Common sense and logic.
Common sense and logic that shows you how to think for yourself and how to make decisions based on like prior experience, on observation, and on facts. But then you're getting into the whole, if you're going to teach that, then no one's going to be religious. Religion is going to die within 10, 15 years. So the powers that be, the people that are in charge, wouldn't want it to be that way because it's...
But something like that will be inconvenient for the people that are in power right now. Because the people that are in power right now don't want it to be that easy for people of color to move up the ranks. So they pretty much have they gotta have some control over that, over the narrative, if you will.
Yeah, we'll save that conversation for next podcast.
Which one?
The controlling the narrative.
Yeah. And
how it benefits one group, a very small group.
Yeah.
By pitting everyone else against each other, including whites.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that nobody ever talks about, that the majority of white people in this country are victims themselves.
Yeah.
They don't have it as bad as blacks and Hispanics, but it doesn't mean that they are not being manipulated.
Because they're not, the only reason or the only difference is that they're not being brutalized by the police the same way that black people and Hispanics are.
Right, and so because you have
everything else is the same.
Right,
they're poor, they're on food stamps, welfare.
And so because you have this system where the whites have it slightly better than the Hispanics and the blacks, then it makes them feel like, oh, it's okay. But it doesn't mean that they're not manipulated and systemically manipulated and victimized themselves.
Yeah.